I never thought that the wedding's postponed would be code for cutting me out of my own son's life. 3 days ago, Logan called. Said the venue had a contractor issue. Some vendor pulled out last minute. He sounded distracted, like he was reading from a script. I asked if he needed help. He said no. Everything was handled. I said I understood, because I wanted to. This morning, I opened Instagram. No real reason, just habit. And the first photo I saw hit like a bat to the chest. Logan, Elise, wedding clothes, arms around each other beneath a white floral arch. Behind them, a villa I'd never seen, stone columns, lemon trees, glass tables arranged in a courtyard. A different place entirely. Not the hotel we talked about, not the postponed ceremony. It had happened. Without me. I kept scrolling. First dance, cake cutting, sparkler send-off, faces I didn't know, people from her side, no one from mine. The caption read, "Nothing extra, just family." I put the phone down on the kitchen table. Next to it was the printed itinerary. Their honeymoon, Thailand, private villas, ocean dinners, custom excursions. 2 weeks, my gift. I'd booked it myself, out of love, out of pride, out of wanting to show them I was still part of their life. Now I sat there like a stranger in my own home. Not angry, not yet, just erased. He looked so comfortable in those photos, so settled into that new version of his life, one where I didn't exist. And somehow, the shot stung more than if he'd said it to my face. They didn't forget to invite me. That's not what happened. They made a decision, and it worked. I stared at the itinerary again, at the names, the hotels, the details I'd personally arranged. Then I folded the paper, neatly, calmly, like closing a file. 3 days after the wedding I didn't attend, I sat at my desk and rolled back the calendar in my head, back to when it started. Memorial Day weekend. That was the day they got engaged. Elise had planned it, of course. Flashy dinner, photographer in the bushes, someone playing acoustic guitar near their table. Logan FaceTimed me later, flashing the ring like it was his. Said she said yes. He looked happy, genuinely happy. That mattered to me. I told him, "Whatever you two need for the honeymoon, it's on me." His eyes lit up. "Seriously? I run a travel business, Logan. I've been doing this since you were in middle school. Let me handle it." He said thanks. Said I didn't have to. But didn't refuse either. I don't do gifts halfway. 2 weeks in Thailand. Private beach resorts. Spa days. Curated food tours. Even a helicopter transfer between islands. I planned it meticulously. Every booking had my name on it. Every confirmation went through my agency. Back then, I thought it was a contribution. Now I wonder if it was just a transaction. After that call, things blurred. Elise sent me a list of dates they were considering. I suggested 1 or 2 hotels based on their style. She smiled politely, said she'd discuss with Logan. I didn't hear back for a week. I remember telling myself not to take it personally. Young couples get busy. But the pattern stuck. She handled the details. Logan just echoed her decisions. They picked the date. Elise emailed it to me without a greeting. I marked it on my calendar, August 14th. I offered to host the rehearsal dinner. Never got a reply. That was the first time I felt it. Like I was on the outside looking in. Still invited, still useful, but not part of it. I'd booked the honeymoon by June, paid in full by July, printed the final itinerary myself, added a handwritten note wishing them peace and joy. That note never came back to me. I doubt it ever left the envelope. Now here I sit, in the same chair, with August behind me and a new reality in front of me. They got what they wanted. And I'm the last to realize what that actually meant. Looking back, the signs weren't subtle. I just didn't want to see them. It started small. Missed brunches, delayed callbacks, Logan's texts shrinking to one-word replies. Busy. Later. All good. The boy I used to talk to every Sunday now replied to me like I was a spam email. I blamed the engagement stress. Wedding planning does that to people, right? So I let it slide. 1 week turned into 2. 1 rescheduled coffee became 3 missed dinners. Then came Elise. She started filtering everything. Send that to me. I'll get back to you. We're just streamlining things. Always polite. Always controlled. Logan followed her lead. When I asked about the rehearsal dinner again, she smiled and said, "We'll circle back." They never did. I told myself not to interfere. I told myself it's their wedding, their way. But something felt off. When I called Logan just to check in, no wedding talk, no agenda, he answered. But his tone was careful. Like I'd caught him sneaking in late. "How's everything?" I asked. There was a pause. "It's fine, just a lot going on." Then he changed the subject, asked about my business, told me he was proud of me, said all the right words with none of the weight behind them, and I let it go. Again. The final straw came 3 weeks before the wedding. I'd emailed Elise a small adjustment to their itinerary. One hotel had upgraded them to a private villa. I thought they'd be thrilled. She never replied. Logan called 3 days later. Said they were putting some things on pause. His voice was flat. No urgency. No emotion. I asked, "You mean the wedding?" He hesitated. "Just a temporary thing. Logistics." I remember sitting there, staring at the phone after we hung up, thinking, that's not his voice. That's not how he talks. He didn't even sound disappointed. And still, I believed him, because the alternative meant something worse, that they weren't just mishandling details, they were phasing me out. That phone call should have been the alarm bell, but I was still clinging to the idea that if I stayed generous and stayed quiet, I'd stay in their life. That's the lie we tell ourselves, isn't it? That love will be enough. I've run my own travel agency out of Montclair for over 3 decades. Private clients. Executive retreats, luxury honeymoons, every itinerary built from scratch, every change tracked. It's not just a business, it's precision, and they forgot that. When I saw those wedding photos, something in me switched. No more guessing, no more waiting for someone to come clean. I pulled their file from the cabinet. Logan and Elise's honeymoon itinerary. Thailand, 2 weeks, 5-star stays, spa packages, custom transport. My gift. I'd built it personally, end to end. On the last page were my initials, and beneath them, access logs. I opened our internal system and pulled the reservation timeline. Something caught my eye right away. A file access from 2 days ago. Not from me, not from Shauna, and not from any of our in-house accounts. The login used an outside email, different domain, not Gmail, not Yahoo. I copied it down. It didn't match Elise's name, not at first glance, but I knew enough to pause. They hadn't changed the trip. They hadn't canceled it. They just moved quietly, forwarding, copying, rerouting the confirmations behind my back. They didn't try to hide it well. They simply assumed I wouldn't look. That's what stayed with me as I sat back in my chair. I've made a career out of fixing emergencies halfway across the world. Clients caught in border closures, typhoons, even civil unrest. I've rebooked entire weddings in 48 hours after political coups. You don't forget how to track details after that. So no, I wasn't hurt by a missed invite. I wasn't shocked they didn't want me there. But they gambled I'd stay passive. That was their mistake, and I don't let that stand. I called Shauna first thing Monday morning. She's been with me long enough to know the difference between a client inquiry and a personal favor disguised as one. She didn't ask questions, just said, "I'm at my desk." "I need you to pull the itinerary logs for the Whitaker trip," I said. "The Thailand file? That's the one. Look for any outside access, anything that didn't come from us." A few minutes of silence followed. Just the soft tap of her keyboard and the occasional breath into the line. Then, found something. I didn't move. The file was opened and forwarded. Twice. But not by you and not by me. My fingers tightened around the arm of the chair. Who touched it? She hesitated. Can't say for sure, but the access came from outside our agency. Not a client portal. Direct login from a personal browser. Time? 3 days ago. That was the morning after Logan told me the wedding was. On pause, I leaned forward. Save everything. Logs, IPs, timestamps. I want a copy in the legal folder and one in the offline archive. Done. Track any future access. Don't flag it. Just monitor. She was quiet again. Then, you want me to lock the reservation? Not yet. I didn't need a confrontation. I needed a trail. If someone was pulling strings behind my back, using systems I built, I wanted to see how far it went before I cut the line. That's why I called Shauna. She knows when to dig and when to wait. They assumed I was a man who'd given up keeping score, someone who handed over gifts without looking back. But I built this business by documenting everything. Clients, vendors, mistakes, patterns. So I drew a line. If it turned out Logan and Elise had knowingly excluded me, if they used my name, my resources, and erased me from the moment, I would cancel the honeymoon. Not loudly, not bitterly, just cleanly, the way I'd cancel any fraudulent booking. No drama, just logistics. And if the wedding truly had fallen apart, if there was some chaos I wasn't told about, then fine, I'd know. And I'd leave it alone. But first, I had to be sure. That was the objective. Shauna had already confirmed the access logs. Elise, or someone at her company, had opened the itinerary file and forwarded it twice. That part wasn't up for debate. But motive? That required more. I needed a pattern, a timeline, a record that showed they'd planned the wedding without me, while continuing to use my name to secure their luxury escape. That's what I set out to build. Not out of spite, but because the one thing I've always understood, both in business and in family, is that if you don't protect your name, no one else will. So I made a list. Cross-reference all booking access logs. Search for any digital trail tying Elise's family business to the wedding. Pull florist, catering, invitation print orders. Look for anything that proves they moved forward while I stood still. This wasn't about punishing them. This was about reclaiming the one thing they underestimated, that I still know how to follow a trail, and I'm not afraid to finish what they started. Shauna called the next morning. I was already at my desk. "You'll want to see this," she said. One of the forwarded emails went to a work address. Not personal. Domain matches Verde Living. Elise's family's firm, I said. Yeah. The email it went to is swan@verdeliving.com. I didn't respond right away, she continued. That's not just a redirect. That's a company archive account. Shared inbox. It's used for storing files tied to internal projects. I pushed the phone against my ear a little harder. So this wasn't just her checking her plans. This was her filing it into a system she didn't think I'd ever see. Exactly, Shauna said. I clicked open the itinerary file on my screen. Still untouched. Still scheduled for their original dates. Beach resort in Phuket, transfer to Krabi, upgraded villa, romantic dinner on arrival. The reservation was still in my name. Nothing canceled. That's what got me. If the wedding really was postponed, why was the trip still active? And why route it through her company? I checked the metadata from the access log. The email had been forwarded 6 minutes after she opened the itinerary. No edits, no changes, just a clean grab and send like she knew exactly what she needed. That was the first breadcrumb. Not a mistake, not an accident, a deliberate handoff. I printed the forwarding record, clipped it to the folder. It wasn't enough to make a move, not yet. but it was the first proof that what they'd told me didn't line up with what they were doing. I didn't call Logan. I didn't ask Elise for an explanation. When someone's rewriting the story, you don't hand them the pen. You collect your own pages. And now I had my first one. And once you see one, your eyes start scanning the ground for more. Logan called the next morning. His voice was light, almost casual, like nothing had happened. "Hey, Dad. Quick thing. Elise misplaced the insurance details for the trip. Can you resend them?" I stared at the phone. The same trip he said might not even happen. He was asking for documents tied to a honeymoon I was supposedly no longer needed for. No mention of the ceremony. No update. Just a clean, friendly request. As if we were back to business as usual. I said, "Sure, no problem," and walked into my office. The moment I sat down, I knew exactly what I was looking for. I pulled up the itinerary file and checked the most recent view logs. Same access signature from 3 days ago. Still no cancellation. No edits. The trip was intact. He hadn't even paused it. I emailed the insurance PDF, just like he asked. No note. No comment. Just the file. Then I sat back and stared at the screen, waiting for the anger to rise. It didn't. What settled in instead was something colder, cleaner. This wasn't just thoughtlessness. This wasn't about two overwhelmed people planning a wedding. This was control. They wanted my resources, not my presence. My name, not my face. Elise had forwarded the itinerary from my system. Someone on her end had stored it, and now Logan was here, smiling through the phone, asking for one more piece of the puzzle. I gave it to him, because I wasn't ready to stop the show. Not yet. Let them keep playing their part. Let them believe I was still asleep. The more they moved like everything was normal, the more I'd learn about how far they were willing to stretch that lie. He ended the call with, "Appreciate it, Dad. You're the best." I looked at the insurance document on the screen. My name was in the policy header. I wasn't looking for another blow. I thought I'd found enough. But then Shauna forwarded one last email, part of a guest thread Elise's father had replied to, casually, like he didn't think anyone outside the circle would ever read it. "Glad we kept it to family." Logan agreed. His side would only complicate things. I didn't react right away, just leaned back and let the words sit. Logan agreed. That sentence stripped away every excuse I'd quietly offered him these past few weeks. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe she decided everything. Maybe he was just trying to avoid a fight. I'd been so ready to explain away his silence, to find some version where he wasn't complicit, just distant, just overwhelmed. But this wasn't silence. This was permission. He had the chance to speak up. He didn't. Not only that, he supported it. Whatever version of the story they told themselves, I was the problem they agreed to remove. It wasn't Elise's family crossing a line. It was Logan drawing one. I closed the laptop slowly. No shaking hands, no surge of heat in my chest. Just a familiar, quiet weight settling in. The kind that comes from clarity. The kind you don't argue with, because there's nothing left to ask. He made a choice, and now I would too. I got up, walked into the living room, and sat down with the old photo albums. Logan's kindergarten graduation, his first baseball uniform, the camping trip where he cried himself to sleep the first night and laughed through the second. Not memories I clung to out of grief, just markers. Reminders that what we had was real once. Now it's over. Not because we fought, not because we grew apart, but because when the moment came to choose whether I still belonged, he didn't hesitate. He just let me go. No shouting, no final call, just a quiet click in the background while a guest list was edited. I didn't eat that night. I wasn't punishing myself, and I wasn't upset in a dramatic way. Food just didn't make sense. I sat in the den, lights off, the house quiet except for the occasional creak of old floorboards. It was the kind of silence I used to treasure after long travel days. proof that everything was handled, that nothing was needed from me in that moment. Now it just felt like confirmation that no one was coming. I reached for the old albums. Not out of nostalgia, I just needed to remind myself it was real. The years, the sacrifices, the ordinary things no one else noticed. Logan asleep on my chest at 6 months. Me in my first real suit, holding his hand at a cousin's wedding. Birthday cakes, soccer uniforms, one blurred shot of us fixing a bike under a tree. His expression, pure focus. Mine, exhaustion. None of that made me sentimental. It made me steady. Because when you give someone your time, your money, your name, and then they act like you were just a guest in their story, it forces you to take stock. Not of them, of yourself. This wasn't about getting an apology. It wasn't about forcing my way back in. It was about drawing a new boundary, one they hadn't expected. All my life, I'd made it easy for people to lean on me. I picked up checks, smoothed over tension, stayed quiet so things could keep moving forward. That was the trade. Be needed, and you get to belong, until you're not needed. And then you find out what was real. I sat with that. No panic, no bitterness. Just a clear view of what I'd built, and what had quietly been taken. The honeymoon? That was just a symbol now. What mattered was the principle. If you erase someone while keeping their benefits, you don't get to be surprised when they reclaim what's theirs. I closed the album and set it aside. They weren't going to see anger from me, but they were about to see resolve. The next morning, I called the concierge desk tied to the honeymoon booking. I didn't rush. I made coffee, checked the weather, and sat down with a notebook. I wanted my mind clear. The woman who answered recognized my voice. We'd worked together before. I kept it simple. I need to revoke all third-party access tied to booking code WBK7713, I said. She confirmed the code, then paused. Would you like to authorize anyone else in their place? No, I said. No substitutions. Just lock it down. She didn't ask why. That's what I appreciated about this level of service. Discretion. She said it would be done within the hour. I thanked her and ended the call. I pulled up the flight details next. 2 business class seats to Bangkok, continuing to Phuket. Same dates, same airline, but I changed the names to mine. No reason to waste the trip. I'd booked it to celebrate love, yes, but also to offer rest, joy, a sense of place. That part hadn't changed. I just wasn't giving it away anymore. I reissued the confirmations to a private folder, cleared the old itinerary from the agency's shared system. No announcement, no explanation, just a quiet reset. They'd find out eventually, probably the day they tried to check in. Let them be confused. Let them call each other trying to figure out what went wrong. That part wasn't my concern anymore. What mattered was this. The thing they thought they controlled, my name, my gift, my silence, was never truly theirs to begin with. They borrowed it, abused it, and now it was back in my hands. I didn't tell Shauna. Not yet. She'd know when the dust settled. This wasn't revenge. It was correction. The trip was mine. I paid for it, planned it, protected it, and now I was taking it. Not to prove anything, just to make the story honest. They'd built a ceremony without me, rewritten the guest list, removed the father, and kept the wallet. I was just returning the favor. 3 days later, I attended my goddaughter's 7th birthday. It was held at a park shelter just outside town. Plastic tablecloths, cupcakes smeared in pink icing, folding chairs under a rental canopy. Real life. No filtered lighting, no staged smiles, just kids running in circles and adults pretending they weren't exhausted. I hadn't planned to talk about any of it. I came for the girl, gave her a book wrapped in tissue, and settled near the edge of the crowd with a paper cup of coffee. Safe, distant, Then Elise's aunt walked in. I recognized her immediately. She'd been in several of the wedding photos. Hair pinned up, bright dress, hands always adjusting something. Organizer type. She saw me, blinked once, then walked over like she didn't quite believe I was real. "You made it," she said, as if this were her event. Her smile tightened as she sat down beside me. "I did." She looked around, then lowered her voice. "I wasn't sure I'd see you again. After everything." I didn't answer. She kept going. Elise's parents were really impressed with how Logan handled things. Said he played his role well, stayed calm, kept the drama out. That word again. Drama. Their favorite excuse for any boundary they don't want to face. She sipped her drink and leaned back, like it was all settled, like I should be grateful they weren't talking worse about me. I opened the folder I'd brought with me, not for drama, for precision. I slid out a printed flower invoice, then the RSVP list. Finally, a redacted email trail showing the itinerary being routed through the Verde server. She stopped smiling. I didn't go looking for anyone else after that day in the park, but word travels fast in quiet circles, especially among people who thrive on curated appearances. 2 days after the birthday party, I got a call from a blocked number. I didn't answer. A voicemail followed. Elise's mother. Short. Controlled. Furious in tone but polite in language. "We need to speak. Immediately. What you've done has caused serious disruption." I deleted it. An hour later, I got an email from a Verde executive assistant asking for clarification regarding the Thailand trip. No details. No apology. Just concern over an unforeseen complication. I didn't respond to that either. I wasn't interested in talking. I was interested in documentation. So I pulled every record from my agency's archive tied to their itinerary. I printed copies of the original honeymoon plans, the system access logs, the IP addresses, the forwarding events. I highlighted timestamps. I redacted no names. Then, I added the florist invoice, the RSVP list, and the booking email Elise's father responded to, the one where he confirmed Logan's agreement to keep it just family. I assembled it all into a binder, simple black, no label, and filed it under a new client folder. Internal, Whitaker Discretionary. This wasn't about court or public exposure. It was about protecting my position. People like Elise's family move quickly when they feel a loss of control. They don't apologize. They try to frame the situation as a misunderstanding, a breakdown in communication, a regrettable lapse. So I prepared for that. Because when people who value image lose leverage, they don't fold, they pivot. I wanted to be ready. If they tried to recast me as unstable or vindictive, I had the paper trail. If they tried to claim confusion, I had the sequence. And if Logan ever came to me, not out of regret, but to explain, I'd hand him the binder. Elise's mother called again that evening. No assistant, no email buffer this time. Her voice wasn't calm anymore. She was angry, and worse, caught off guard. "You canceled their honeymoon," she said. No greeting. "No," I replied. "I removed their access to a trip I paid for. The booking is still active." "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point." She exhaled hard into the phone. I could picture her pacing some polished floor, phone held too tight, looking for language that made this about me overreacting instead of them getting caught. "They were relying on that trip," she said. "They shouldn't have relied on someone they deliberately excluded. You're punishing them for a decision that had nothing to do with you." "No," I said. "I'm simply reasserting control over something I built." There was a pause. Not long. Just enough to signal that she hadn't expected the conversation to be this flat, this unmovable. "You've embarrassed the family," she said. "That wasn't my doing. You don't know what this could do to Logan professionally. I suggest he think about that next time he lets someone else speak for him." She didn't respond. I stayed on the line just long enough to make it clear I wasn't afraid of her silence, then said, "If you need anything further, go through Shauna," and hung up. I didn't slam the phone, didn't pace the room, just stood there for a moment, breathing in the stillness. It was the first time since this all began that I felt upright. Not vindicated, not triumphant, just centered again, like I'd stepped out of the role they'd written for me and back into my own. For weeks they'd been operating under the belief that I wouldn't do anything, that I was soft, passive, easily handled. Now they had to recalculate. They still had their wedding. They still had their guest list, their photos, their champagne under the lemon trees. But now, I had something too. The next morning, it wasn't me who said anything. I didn't need to. One of Logan's groomsmen, someone I'd met twice, maybe 3 times, posted a story on Instagram. A boomerang of champagne flutes clinking in front of a sunset. Caption: "Secret wedding to avoid family drama. Guess the secret's out." The tone was light, almost smug, but the comments weren't. People noticed. Somebody asked, "Why wasn't his dad there?" Another added, "Didn't his father pay for their honeymoon?" I watched the thread quietly. Didn't comment. Didn't share. I didn't have to. By mid-afternoon, Elise's parents had turned off replies on their business account. Their anniversary post from the week before was suddenly gone. Photos started disappearing from Logan's page. Entire rows of them. A friend of mine, someone who knew nothing, texted, "Hey, is everything okay with the wedding? Saw some weird stuff online." I replied, "All good here," and that was true, because what happened next didn't come from me. It came from the weight of their choices surfacing in a space they couldn't fully control. Reputation mattered to them. Image was currency. And now the narrative wasn't cooperating. I never told anyone not to speak for me. I just made sure no one could speak over me. By early evening, the groomsman's story was gone, replaced by a photo of a beach and the word reset. It was starting. The edits, the redirection, the quiet scrambling behind closed doors. I knew the signs. I'd seen clients try to pivot when their mistakes started costing them more than just comfort. The way they'd drop old stories mid-sentence and hope no one remembered the original version. But this one wasn't going to disappear, because while they managed the fallout, I wasn't doing damage control. I was planning my own departure. Not from the family, from the part of me that had waited, politely, to be acknowledged. They had their ceremony, their curated piece. Now they had to live in it. By the end of the week, the full impact reached them. The honeymoon was gone. Not delayed, not rerouted, just gone. The reservation still existed, but without their names attached. It might as well have been in another language. They tried to salvage it, I'm sure. Maybe Logan called the airline. Maybe Elise emailed the hotel under the same tone she used for vendors she thought she controlled. But it wouldn't matter. Every reservation had been rerouted, every name locked. The travel insurance I'd arranged? Also void. I'd canceled it through my agency portal. No refund owed to them. No way to claim a loss. Only I held the confirmation code, and without that, they had no coverage. Then came the message. Logan. Text. 2 lines. "You didn't have to go nuclear. We could have talked." No punctuation. No greeting. Just that tone. Accusation masquerading as disappointment. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed everything. He still thought I was the one who escalated this. As if weeks of silence, exclusion, redirection, and deception were somehow less aggressive than the simple act of reclaiming what was mine. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because there was no longer a conversation worth having. He'd been willing to disappear me quietly. Keep my name on the bill but off the invitation. Now he'd have to explain that to Elise's family, to her company, To whoever signed off on the honeymoon itinerary thinking it would go unnoticed. It wasn't just a matter of hurt feelings anymore. Now there was a cost. And it wasn't mine to carry. They could scrub photos, rewrite captions, dodge questions, but the gaps would remain. People always notice when someone's missing, especially when that someone decides they're done being useful in silence. They were supposed to fly out Tuesday morning. I didn't check whether they made it. Didn't care if they scrambled to salvage something last minute. I had already landed. Same villa, same room I booked for them, except now the reservation carried only my name. The receptionist smiled as she handed me the key. No explanation required. I unpacked slowly. No rush, no itinerary to follow. Just the steady sound of the ocean pulling at the shoreline outside. That afternoon, I walked the beach. Flat stretch, empty, low tide. I picked up a dark pebble, warm from the sun, and dropped it into the water. No meaning, no gesture, just enough. There was no moment where it all felt worth it. No cinematic closure, just quiet. I kept the key card in my pocket the whole trip. Didn't use the spa package, didn't take the dinner cruise. Just read, walked, and let the noise back home unravel without me. There were no follow-ups, no calls, no apology, no second text from Logan. It was over, and they knew it. I wasn't waiting anymore for explanations, or peace, or a better version of the story. The life I built for him gave them access. Then they turned around and acted like it had always been theirs. Now they could figure out how to move without it. I wasn't angry anymore, just done.